House Democratic freshmen have been working for the people over the last 100 days. We've gotten so much done.
I've offered an amendment to lower the voting age to 16.
I'm fighting to hold the VA accountable.
Writing and introducing a Green New Deal and securing over 90 co-sponsors.
Passing H.R. 8 to ensure universal background checks on all gun sales.
Introduce a resolution to defend the ACA and put the House back on the side of the people.
I've been accountable to my constituents, holding town halls and coffees across our district.
I introduced the Building Blocks of STEM Act to encourage more women and girls to get involved in STEM.
I introduced legislation for people that have a pre-existing condition like I do.
Passed my bill into law. We're building a seawall on the east shore of Staten Island.
Juntos trabajamos para proteger a las personas que tienen condiciones preexistentes y también para reducir los costos de servicios médicos.
I put Oklahomans in the 5th District front and center by holding 8 public events in the first 100 days.
Provisions from my first bill were included in the public lands package that passed.
I was very proud that the House accepted my amendment to break the lock of big dollar donors.
I introduced and passed the Paul Act to strengthen enforcement of foreign lobbying and to crack down on lobbyists who represent human rights abusers.
I started the Freshman Working Group on Addiction. We've got over 50 members, all bipartisan.
We're pushing forward with the Dream and Promise Act to give our dreamers a true path to citizenship.
I'm so honored and privileged to be able to fight back against the high rates of car insurance in our state.
We worked with President Trump to protect our Liberian community in Minnesota.
I passed my first bill as part of this year's budget to speed construction of the Gateway Tunnel between New Jersey and New York.
H.R. 8, federal background checks for all gun sales, and H.R. 1112, closing the Charleston loophole.
I introduced bipartisan legislation to increase accountability over private housing for military families.
I am proud of the work that we've done on transparency, oversight, accountability.
I co-sponsored the greatest election and campaign finance reform bill to ever pass the House.
My first bill was passed and signed into law by the President, accomplishing a major local priority.
I introduced bipartisan legislation on our broken border policy. It passed unanimously out of committee.
We've done over 120 events and our first town hall.
NJ11 had the largest swing in the entire country, and we followed that up in January with a town hall of over 550 people. I'm so proud to have been named to the Select Committee on Climate.
I introduced H.R. 231, which is a bill that will prohibit the use of federal funds to arm teachers.
The SAVE Act, bipartisan legislation aimed at lowering health care costs for Americans.
Proud to introduce and pass out of the House my first bill, the End Dark Money Act.
I passed 2 amendments to H.R. 1 that will help restore confidence in our democratic system.
I passed my first bill having to do with creating new opportunities in rural America.
My team has been able to help resolve over 50 casework requests.
I introduced the American Dream Employment Act, which allows dreamers to work on Capitol Hill.
I helped pass universal background checks for firearm purchases.
I met with over 150 constituents, including 17 local businesses.
The Safe Housing Families Act will save lives by requiring carbon monoxide detectors in public housing.
I conducted aggressive oversight of big banks, credit reporting agencies, and Trump officials who cheated consumers.
351 constituent meetings, over $155,000 returned to constituents of District 3.
I introduced a bill to make sure that every eligible voter has access to the ballot box and can exercise the right to vote.
I introduced the State Healthcare Premium Reduction Act.
We introduced legislation to ban offshore drilling off the Atlantic and the Pacific coast.
The unanimous passage of my first bill, the Bipartisan Venezuela Arms Restriction Act.
The Next Generation Votes Act to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote.
I was able to remove restrictions on federal transportation funds coming to my district.
I am most proud of working with my fellow freshman Democrats to fight for American values and fight for bipartisanship legislation.
We've answered 8,000 constituent emails and 2,000 letters. We fielded over 1,600 phone calls, and we've closed over 100 work files.
We really have had success in working on legislation, one piece with Joe Cunningham, to save our oceans from offshore drilling.
I'm so proud of the team that we've assembled. It really reflects the diversity of our district.
I visited each of our 16 counties every month. The House passed my Transparency in Corporate Political Spending Act.
We passed 2 bills on gun violence prevention that will save lives.
The bipartisan bill to protect the Chesapeake Bay.
I introduced legislation in order to hold drug companies accountable.
I worked across the aisle with Dan Newhouse to get a bill signed into law that ensures a reliable water supply in the Yakima Basin.
I protected access to affordable health care for over 100,000 people.
The PAID Ad Act.
I was proud to put together a Veterans Advisory Council and an Agriculture Advisory Council.
I've held town hall meetings and public gatherings throughout my district.
So much done!